Shalom, all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh, Bahashim Yahushai, Bahashim HaKodesh. Double honors unto the apostles and elders of GMS, or the true leaders of Israel today, and salutations to all of the Akim who do this work in truth and sincerity, who risking their lives and their freedoms to do so, as well as the scattered Israelites who come looking like the heathen, but are not, by way of their forefathers' seeds who are Israelite men. The true name of the Most High is Yahweh, and his son's name is Yahushai. And the Lord's holy chosen people are the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, as we're the ones who suffer under the curses in the book of Deuteronomy. My name is Akalil, and this video is about the end of times and Bible prophecy, specifically on the prophecy of pestilence. Alright, pestilence is an end time prophecy, end time meaning the end of the age of the rulership of the so-called white man who are the biblical Edomites, right? We are going to be experiencing severe judgment that will be coming from Yahweh Shemishai. As it says in 2 Ezra chapter 15 and verse 5, it says, "Behold, saith the Lord, I will bring plagues upon the world, the sword, famine, death, and destruction. For wickedness hath exceedingly polluted the whole earth, and their hurtful works are fulfilled." All right, so severe judgment is coming, man. And the Lord states why: because the world is wicked, and the world is wicked because the people that are in rulership, who are these so-called white people, the biblical Edomites, they are the wicked. Okay, so they don't follow the law, statutes, and commandments of Yahweh Shemishai, and they have established their rulership. And the people of the world have taken on to their way of life, which is the way of wickedness, and our people have taken on to those ways as well. All right, so this kingdom is prime for judgment, and the scriptures say in the book of 2 Timothy, I think it's 3 and verse 1, it says, "This know also that in the last days perilous times shall come." The last days before the return of our Lord Yahushai. All right, perilous times shall come, and these perilous times includes, all sorts of judgment. It is going to be the time of Jacob's trouble, which is a time like never before upon us as a nation, and it will include pestilence. All right, so with that, observing the times, because the scriptures say to measure the time diligently, we are to observe what is going on around the world and relate it to Bible prophecy. So here it is in the New York Post. Severe outbreak of mosquito borne chikungunya virus infects 8,000 people in China, prompts mass quarantine. So they're in lockdown. All right, because when you do a search for this, it says lockdowns are back, China fighting new virus with drones enforcement. Okay, so this is the situation at hand. And to bring it out, in the book of Matthew chapter 24 and verse 3, it says, "And as he sat upon the Mount of Olives, the disciples came unto him privately, saying, Tell us, when shall these things be? And what shall be the sign of thy coming and of the end of the world?" And the word "world" here is G165, which is the Greek word aeon, which says a period of time, age. So it's actually not talking about the end of the world as we know it, the physical world, or it is talking about the end of a period of time or age, which is talking about the period of time and age of the rulership of the so-called white man. All right, the Edomites, the wicked. Okay, so Yahushua said, going to verse 6, "And ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that ye be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet." And we're in this time. All right, we've been hearing about wars and rumors of wars, all kinds of tension that is happening between these world powers, Russia, America, the EU, NATO, right? Iran, the state of Israel, and these are all major players regarding the World War III prophecy. All right, so they are intended to, have tensions escalate, because that is, moving towards the prophecy of World War III. But in the interim, at first, it's going to be wars and rumors of wars before, the war of Armageddon occurs, right? Revelation 16, verse 16. So then it says, "For nation shall rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom," right? And that's what we're seeing as well. All right, the tensions escalating between these world powers, and there shall be famines and pestilences and earthquakes in diverse places. All these are the beginning of sorrows. All right, so knowing the prophecy of Jacob's trouble, it is out of Jacob's trouble that, the elect of the nation of Israel will be saved, and salvation is only for the Israelites. Okay, but we're going to be seeing rumors of wars, nation rising against kingdom, nation rising against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and that there will be famines, pestilences, and earthquakes. And these are the beginning of sorrows. So the earthquakes are very frequent occurrence, right? And they're happening not only more frequently in these last days, but also more powerfully. Okay. Then you have the famines, which the famine is coming about. Like you have the famine that's happening in, I believe it's Sudan, right? Due to whatever situation they're dealing with over there. And then you have the famine that's happening in Gaza, right? A very severe famine. It's very sore. And the famine is going to continue to increase, right? Because famine is a part of these end time judgments that will be occurring. And then the scriptures mention the pestilences. Okay, so the pestilences, disease and all that. Actually, let me take a look at what it says for pestilence here. Pestilence, Greek word, loimos, a pest, a plague, right? And so, in ancient Egypt, before we were delivered, Yahweh Shemishai brought the plagues to Egypt, right? Such as the frogs and the gnats that infested, Egypt, and the livestock were harmed by like flies and stuff like that. They were infected. And then, there was also the mass death of Egyptian livestock to pestilence. And then the Egyptians were infected by boils, and also their livestock were infected by boils. So pestilence is disease, and the scriptures say here pestilences, so it's going to be multiple of them. So the eyes are kept on these pestilences. So now you have this severe outbreak of mosquito borne chikungunya virus, infects 8,000 in China, prompts mass quarantines, which are the lockdowns. All right, thousands of people have been infected with a painful mosquito-borne virus in China, prompting a response not seen since the situation in 2020, including mass quarantines, even though the virus is not spread by humans. The chikungunya virus has rapidly spread to about 8,000 patients in just 4 weeks, mainly across China's Guangdong province to the south, with the city of Foshan hit the hardest, according to the New York Times. But Hong Kong's first case was confirmed Monday, and the increasingly worrisome situation is stoking fears of a potential pandemic. Infected residents are being sent to quarantine wards in hospitals, where they're placed in beds covered by mosquito nets. They have to then remain there for a week unless they test negative beforehand. Nearby cities at one point also forced people entering from Foshan to quarantine themselves for 14 days, but have since lifted that order. All right, the drastic measures show just how jittery Chinese officials are about the potential for another major health crisis, considering chikungunya is typically not deadly and not spread between humans, but is transmitted by the bites of infected Aedes mosquitoes. In a massive effort to curb its further spread, masked Chinese soldiers have been dousing public spaces with insecticide, and authorities have begun releasing elephant mosquitoes whose larvae devour the smaller virus-carrying mosquitoes. Thousands of mosquito-eating fish also have been released in Foshan's public ponds. Okay, so, that's the situation at hand, right? The rest of the article, there's a lockdown in China over what is a plague, a disease, all right? And this speaks to the end of times, and, I've been keeping up with it, my watchman, set from Yahweh Shemishai to watch, and I've been bringing out the news. And one of the news that I was bringing out was the bird flu, because the bird flu was the one that they were focusing on, right? Very prominently. And, the bird flu seemed to have gone away. And it's interesting because when I Googled bird flu, it even says it itself in one of these articles. Where is it at? There it is here, Scientific American. It said, where did bird flu go? right? Because it just seemingly kind of like the narrative for it stopped. But before, they were really pushing the narrative very heavily, from country to country, with people being infected, and then the situation with the livestock, the poultry, and then the egg situation of it all. But then, how ironic is it that bird flu just 18 hours ago, so that was 3 weeks ago, right? So now 18 hours ago, bird flu confirmed in 6-year-old Cambodian girl, right? And then 1 week ago, avian flu, which is a bird flu, wiped out poultry. Now the screwworm is coming for beef. So even though the narrative for the bird flu slowed down, as it may seem, it is still going and it's still there. But this contributes to the prophecy, because it says pestilences. It's not just going to be one thing. What is another thing that came up the other day? The bubonic plague, right? That came up the other day. You had the virus that they said was in Alabama. They had the Ebola scare that they said they had in New York. Then you had the measles outbreak, right? That happened very recently, that they said was affecting America and Canada. So it's a multitude of them that is happening. And who knows what the next one will be that comes up. But it shows and it speaks to the times that we're in. As Yahushua said, that pestilences will, come about. It will be a sign of the end. All right. And so, that's what it is. In the book of Ezekiel, chapter 7 and verse 14, it says, is it 14? It's 15. The sword is without, and the pestilence and the famine within. He that is in the field shall die with the sword, and he that is in the city, famine and pestilence shall devour him. So there's no escaping the judgments of Yahweh Shemishai. You will perish of famine or pestilence. All right. However it is, you can be affected by the pestilence still and still perish of the famine. It is a terrible judgment to experience. And then the pestilence here, H1698, the Hebrew word dabar, which is pestilence, plague, cattle disease, cattle plague. So, in ancient Egypt, one of the plagues was that the pestilence affected the livestock, right? And the boils as well, and the boils affected the people. So it's going to be hitting in all sorts of different types of ways when it really starts happening, when Yahweh Shemishai unleashes the severe judgment of pestilence upon the world. But this speaks to the times that we're in, man. And I'm sure there will be more updates in due time regarding this, but it's very curious to see that there's a lockdown in China over this situation, right? Because there's also been another one that they've been talking about, other pestilence, right? Because they had the quademic that they were reporting about from last year, December, until like a certain point, which was a mixture of 4 different pestilences, which one of them included the C19, and the others that were included in that quademic was the RSV, the flu, and the norovirus, right? So you can see there's so many that's going around, all right? So many that's coming up in the news, all right? It is speaking to the end of Esau's kingdom, all right? So, what's coming, that microchip, which is the mark of the beast, right? The mark of the beast prophecy, where it's going to be made mandatory worldwide. It's only a matter of time before that happens too, man, all right? So we'll just see how this continues to escalate. I'll keep eyes on it, but that's just what it is for now. With that, all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh Shemishai, Bashim Kodesh. Shalom.